All right. Let's get back into it. #21 World Yig YIG Saturn. Showed you last time. Great big serpent snake on an egg. A great serpent coils in 3.5 turns up the sides of a vast black egg that stands vertically on its larger end. The direction of the snake's sliding body in its ascent is Widdershins. 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 Against the course of the sun. I guess that's what that means. Against the course of the sun. Widdershins. Its eye is amber flecked with gold, having a vertical pupil. Heat pits are visible along the side of its jaw, which gapes to reveal numerous curved teeth. The head of the snake is adorned by a feathered crest along its top and a ruff of feathers around its neck, giving it a strange appearance. The scales of its body are iridescent and every color of the rainbow. They show a pattern similar to that of a reticulate python. The feathered snake rears its head straight upward as if to bite the sky. The background above, below, and on either side of the egg is dark and chaotic, filled with storm clouds that are lit from behind concealed flashes of lightning. The egg and the serpent seem to float in this chaotic void. Directly behind the head of the snake is a vortex in the chaos that swirls the clouds in a spiral that turns clockwise as it focuses inward upon its center, which is located directly behind the jaws of the serpent. The vortex acts as a sort of halo for the serpent's head, its swirling lit by fire against the darker brooding backdrop of the clouds. The egg is smooth and of a beautiful black tinged with blue, like the night sky. The sparks of light lie scattered across its polished surface. These sparks are stars. Here and there, a tiny galaxy is visible. The egg is the universe of creation. The dark clouds are formless chaos from which the world arose and upon which it floats like a sealed ark upon the stormy waters of the ocean. The serpent god ascends from the universe, which it encompasses in its coils, to the primal swirling vortex from which all creation descended upon the lightning. Were it to tighten its coils around the universe, the egg of creation would shatter into myriad fragments that could never be reformed. Well, that was tough to get through. Rough start. Upright, fulfillment, completion, totality, summing up, the conclusion of a work, coming full circle, seeing the big picture, final act, last thing to be done. Inverted, going in circles, sense of futility, lack of comprehension, failure to understand what goes around comes around. Pawn of fate, puppet on a string, something uncompleted. All right. That was the last of the trump cards. Now we're into chapter 5, the court cards. It says wands. It's in magic wands. Lord, Lady, Commander, Overseer. And it says predominant color, shades of red. And it has this weird compass looking thing. Okay, we got the King of Wands, and then it says Lord. So he's the Lord. Check him out. He's on his throne. This little wand thingy. A lordly, bearded man of middle years, whose long blonde hair is restrained by a golden circlet, stands beside an elaborate gilded throne. The snarling heads of lions adorn both arms of the throne, while on the corners of its high back are the heads of eagles. The throne has a red velvet cushion for a seat. Its back legs resemble lion paws, while its front legs are in the shape of eagle talons that grip crystal spheres. Fancy. The man is dressed in a red tunic embroidered with gold thread, over which is a gilded ceremonial breastplate trimmed with silver. Golden greaves inlaid with silver protect his shins above his leather sandals. Around his neck on a chain hangs a pendant in the shape of an upright triangle of ruby. The throne occupies a raised marble dais, D-A-I-S, it's probably die. Out. The throne occupies a raised marble die out of doors. Behind it on either side are two translucent pillars of crystal, rock crystal, one rose-hued and the other milky white, between which hangs a tall red banner, emblazoned in red and gold, with rearing winged lion having two heads, that of a lion and an eagle. On one side of this banner, tall sea cliffs are visible at the base, which break white waves, and on the other side, a galley sails upon the sea beneath the brilliant globe of the sun, shining with painful brightness in the blue sky. The Lord stands stiffly with his left hand on the back of the empty throne. His expression is grim, as though in the act of passing judgment, and lowers in his right hand a massive black staff that is tipped with a crystal faceted in the shape of a tetrahedron, regular geometric body with four sides, i.e., a three-sided pyramid. Towards someone who kneels unseen before the throne, out of the frame of the card. He holds the wand lowered, and from its crystal pours forth a blazing ray of radiant energy, resplendent with many colors, that expands as it extends from the wand. The brightness of the crystal seems to derive its heat and energy from the rays of the sun behind the Lord, magnifying and transforming their warmth into a deadly yet beautiful force of destruction. Upright, mature man who is impulsive, forceful, generous but also capricious. I don't know what that means, but I recognize the word. Quick to extend his favor, but impatient of delays and furious when contradicted. His impatience can lead him into rash actions he later regrets, but he cannot bear to admit his errors. Anger comes and goes with equal swiftness. Inverted. Mature man who is overbearing and at times brutal, unable to control his temper, vindictive toward those who oppose him. All his force is in his first attempt, but if this fails, he begins to war with himself and loses his purpose. His nature is noble, but he corrupts it with his need to always be in control. This is getting into the personality traits. Interesting. The Queen of Wands, Lady. Just a picture. Lady with the eagle. A noblewoman dressed in a long green gown with a red travel cape trimmed in ermine hanging from her broad shoulders stands upon the grassy, wind-blown edge of a precipice that overlooks the ocean. She has long red hair and blue eyes, high cheekbones, slender yet muscular limbs, and an upright posture. Okay. Her expression is serene with a trace of arrogance. Upon the front of her gown is embroidered in the gold the crest of a winged lion with two heads, that of a lion and an eagle. Around her neck, on a chain, hangs the pendant in the shape of an inverted triangle of sapphire. So before it was ruby, I think. Now it's sapphire. In her left hand, she holds the upright shaft of an ebony walking staff that is headed with a large crystal in the shape of a trapezohedron, having 12 sides. Her right hand and her wrists are covered in the thick leather of a falconer's glove, which she raises and extends to launch her hunting eagle, in the act of spreading its wings as it leaps into the air from her hand towards its unseen prey. The clouds rolling in on the windy sky are lit beneath with the rust and gold of the setting sun. Distant, soaring birds fly among them. Okay, it says upright, a mature woman with an innate authority over others, deep inner strength of will, relaxed self-assurance, a complete absence of uncertainty, and a sustained sense of purpose that adapts flexibly to achieve its ends. She is well liked by those she dominates because she does it with such grace and skill, projecting an aura of stability and security. Inverted, a mature woman whose pride and vanity causes her to believe that she is always right. She obstinately persists in actions even when they are shown to be not in her own best interests, merely from a determination to see them through to the end. She perceives those who disagree with her as her enemies and can become vengeful toward them if they refuse to submit to her will. Obstinately. Alright, Knight of Wands, Commander. You got this dude. He's got like some fucking saber-toothed tigers on a chariot thing. Let's see what it says. A fierce young nobleman in light combat armor made from black iron and laid with gold and silver wire stands in a chariot, a look of battle lust distorting his handsome aristocratic features. His long auburn hair streams on the rushing wind away from his forward-seeking gray eyes. From his broad shoulders, a red cloak lifts and ripples behind him. The crest of a winged lion with two heads, that of a lion and that of an eagle, ornaments his black breastplate. Around his neck, on a chain, hangs a pendant in the shape of an upright triangle of yellow topaz. The warrior stands in a black racing chariot that is drawn by two enormous saber-toothed tigers, jaws gaping and their dagger-like fangs exposed by their snarls. A red copper plaque in the shape of outspread eagle wings, between which is the snarling head of a lion, decorates the front of the chariot. In his right hand, the warrior holds the reins that guide the beasts. In his left hand, he reveals a black staff with a large crystal on top that has the shape of an octahedron, regular geometric body with 8 sides. From the crystal, bright multicolored rays of destruction pour forth the unseen army of his foes as he races into their midst. There's a wild joy in his eyes, a kind of killing lust that is mirrored in the fierce glares of the saber-toothed cats. The chariot races along the margin of a broad sandy beach upon which break the waves of the sea, foaming with white water. Upright, a young man who is hasty and rash, who acts quickly without thinking, sometimes in violent ways. His temper is explosive, and when it erupts, it scorches anyone who is near. If he does not immediately act, he falls into an indecisive state of mind that paralyzes him because it makes him see both sides of the question equally, until at last he seizes on some unconsidered course merely to free himself from doubt. Inverted, a young man who enjoys argument for its own sake, merely to contradict others. He is restless and filled with nervous energy, yet unwilling to apply himself to any steady work. He tends to be boastful and a bit of a show off, but beneath his bold mask, he is prey to sudden, intense fears and doubts. He can be impatient and even cruel towards others, and may humiliate them with insults and words of contempt. He shows no mercy towards those he attacks. Knave of Wands, Overseer. An athletic, masculine looking young woman with red hair cut severely short in military fashion stands beside a narrow upright cage of black iron bars. She holds the door of the cage open with her right hand. In her left hand, she cradles a heavy mace that is tipped with a large crystal in the shape of a cube, regular geometric body with 6 sides, in parentheses, and wears a halter top of black leather that defines her full breasts and loose red trousers. Her enormous belt buckle is brass cast in the form of a snarling lion's head with eagle's wings on either side. Around her neck hangs a pendant in the shape of an inverted triangle of emerald. Her eyes are dark gray in color, almost charcoal. Her expression shows brutality mingled with satisfaction. Traces of blood are evident on the cubic head of her mace. Beside the cage is a whipping post from which dangle iron shackles caked with dried blood. A grinning hyena, ignored by the overseer, crouches and sniffs at the blood pooled on the ground, its tongue extended. It wears a spiked collar around its neck. Upright, a young woman or child who loves to be in control of others, possessing great physical courage, who is ambitious and forceful, refusing to be dissuaded or placated when in pursuit of her goal. Her intense energy gives her superficial fascination that is apt to be mistaken for beauty. She has a love for power. Inverted, a young woman or child given to theatrical displays and tantrums as a way of manipulating others. She tends to be shallow and emotionally unstable, a bit of a bully in getting her own way. Her insatiability and moodiness make her unreliable, and she cannot be depended on to do what she promised, even though at the time she made the promise, she believed what she said. Damn. Okay. Now we're getting into cups. Priest, priestess, monk, scribe. Predominant color, shades of blue. Oh, there's the blue right there. Shit. The King of Cups, the priest. Little priest. A shaven-headed Egyptian priest in a white linen robe with voluminous sleeves stands behind a carved stone altar table that bears an elaborate silver chalice. He is tall and straight in body, but his face is lined with years. With his left hand, he squeezes a bunch of red grapes so that the juice drips and runs between his fingers and falls into the bowl of the chalice, which is almost filled with red grape juice that resembles a kind of transparent blood. With his right hand, he makes a pagan gesture of blessing over the chalice. The fingernails on his large hands are trimmed into points, somewhat resembling the claws of a cat. On his feet, unseen behind the altar, he wears simple slippers of white leather. A pendant having the shape of an upright triangle is made from ruby, hangs on a chain around his neck. Behind his head is a round window through which streams moonlight upon the chalice and the altar. The altar table is supported by 4 seated stone cats, very tall and slender, which form the legs of the table and face in 4 directions away from the table. A white linen cloth hangs over the center of the table. On its side is the symbol of the mandorla, an upright oval pointed on both sides, outlined in silver and colored deep blue. The beam of moonlight from the window makes the chalice shine as though illuminated from within. Upright, a mature man who is sensitive and suggestible, graceful in his manner, easily led by others, willing to follow but unwilling to lead. He is infected by the enthusiasm around him and energized by it, so that he thinks it is his own, but when removed from it, his enthusiasm quickly dies. His nature is inherently artistic, expressing itself more in appreciation than creation. Inverted, a mature man who is easily led into foolish or even criminal actions. He is passively sensual and enjoys being aroused by others. He lies merely to avoid unpleasantness or difficulty. Left to his own devices, he seldom gets into trouble, but when he falls in with with a bad crowd, the results can be disastrous. Evil holds an attractive fascination for him. Okay, Queen of Cups, Priestess. A beautiful priestess of Bast, tall and slender, stands behind a wooden table in a kitchen, wearing a simple white linen robe, her dark hair restrained beneath an Egyptian nimbus of white linen. Over the swell of her breasts is tied, always mentioning the breasts, is tied a long apron of beige cotton. She pours the milk from a womb-shaped vase of red clay into a, I said vase of red clay into a large wooden mixing bowl that is half filled with flour and eggs. Her fingernails are trimmed into points like the claws of a cat. Affixed to the side of the vase is the symbol of the mandorla, colored blue and edged with silver. Broken eggshells lie on the wooden table beside the bowl. Next to them is a wooden board upon which is a kneaded bun of fresh bread, waiting to be placed in the oven that burns in the masonry wall behind her. Around her neck, on a chain, hangs a pendant in the shape of an inverted blue triangle made of sapphire. Upright, a mature woman of dreamy, inward looking nature, lost amid her thoughts and memories. She seems to have no personality of her own, but reflects the moods of those around her. She dislikes having her tranquility disturbed by the problems of other human beings, and does her best to avoid those who are in difficulty or emotional pain. At the same time, she likes to present a superficial appearance of interest in the affairs of others. She is kind, but avoids involvement to protect her own feelings. Inverted, a mature woman who is shallow, brittle, and vain about her appearance, who cares only about her own ease and the satisfaction of her passing whims. She delights to be the object of attention, to be fashionable and stylish, to be in the vanguard of social trends and have others talking about her and following her around. Even so, she has no firm opinions of her own, but says anything that she thinks will make the strongest impression. Lacking a direction of her own, she is easily led into foolish or petty actions by others. Knight of Cups, the monk. Let's see the monk. He's sipping a little something, something. Got them barrels in his little cat, it looks like. A somewhat cherubic monk of Bast, with clear blue eyes, stands in an off-white and soiled linen robe in a wine cellar beside a row of wooden barrels that lie on their sides in a rack along one of the stone walls of the cellar. His head has been shaved, but his hair has begun to grow back and covers his scalp with fine stubble. The flame of a brass oil lamp hanging from the ceiling on three chains provides illumination for the monk as he samples with thick lips the new wine he has just drawn from one of the barrels. His right hand still rests on top of the barrel, while his left he elevates a glass goblet trimmed with silver to his lips, an expression of joyful contentment on his chubby face as he drinks. The lamplight shines through the wine and gives it the look of transparent blood. His fingernails are pointed like the claws of a cat. That seems to be a theme. Hanging from his rope-like sash on a chain are three large keys, one of silver, one of gold, and the third of black iron. The fob of the keychain, which is tucked through his sash, hangs down beside the keys, is a large silver pendant in the shape of a mandorla, enameled over its surface with blue. Around the monk's neck hangs a chain, a pendant in the shape of an upright triangle that is made of yellow topaz. Behind the monk, on top of one of the barrels, a well-fed Egyptian cat crouches with a dead mouse dangling by the tail from its paw. The whiskered face of the cat bears an expression of contentment that seems to mirror that of the monk. Upright, A young man who is calm on the outside but inwardly intense, seething with determination. He likes to keep his purposes to himself and tends to be crafty and subtle. He works for his own ends with ruthless, single minded determination. His complete devotion to his own goals generate mistrust and dislike in others. Inverted. A young man who puts his pursuit of secrets and personal power above the welfare of others. This can lead him to unscrupulous conduct. He views others either as obstructions or tools to be used, and he displaces or uses them with utter ruthlessness. He hides his purposes to deceive. He does not think of himself as evil, but sees himself as clever and practical. He has scant sympathy for other human beings. Scant. So, not a lot. Okay, Knave of Cups, Scribe. Just, scribing it up. A slender Egyptian nun who is scarcely older than a girl sits on a high stool before an angled wooden writing desk. She wears white nimis to cover her head and a white linen robe, the loose sleeves of which have been tied up with black cords to prevent ink stains from ruining the garment. His cheeks are so hollow and his face so pale he has a skull-like appearance. She has a skull-like appearance. Around her neck, on a chain, hangs a pendant in the shape of an inverted triangle made of emerald. On a ledge of the writing desk rests a simple brass cup without a handle from which extend several different reed pens, their shaped nibs stained with ink. Beside them is a small inkwell. The scribe concentrates by the light of a brass oil lamp on a papyrus scroll spread across the desk. Beneath some writing at the top of the scroll may be seen an illumination in the shape of a mandorla. The papyrus beneath the mandorla is as yet still blank. Still blank. Black ink smudges the sunken cheek and skinny fingers of the nun. She's all sponged up. Her fingernails are shaped into points like the claws of a cat. Again, the wall of scriptorium in which she sits is covered with a cross-hatch of pigeonholes, from many of which project rolled papyrus scrolls. The other holes are empty. Okay. Upright, a young woman or child of a sweet, gentle disposition, tender of heart, kind and gracious towards others, with an unusually active imagination. Outwardly dreamy and sedate, her courage is aroused in fierce defense of those who she loves. She is charming and loyal in friendship, faithful in love, reliable companion. Inverted, a young woman or child who tends to be indolent, disinclined to exert herself, loving luxury, self-absorbed, lost in her own fantasy and indifferent to the affairs of the real world. She puts her own ease and pleasure before the welfare of others. She is incapable of making herself useful and cannot be relied on. She is not so much selfish as caught up in herself and unable to see beyond her own desires and impulses. We trying to go too fast. All right, moving on to fucking swords. Assassin, harlot, mercenary, thief. Predominant color, shades of yellow. We're about to get into that yellow probably. Where that yellow at? Alright, King of Swords, assassin. Got this dude coming in the window with a fucking skull mask and a bow and arrow. A slender but athletic man has climbed partly through the tall open window of a house. He is dressed in all black, with a short silk tunic on his torso that has long sleeves down to his wrists, black leather gloves, and tight black trousers that fit into the tops of high black leather boots. At his waist, a short, straight sword with a heavy silver pommel in the shape of a skull is belted in its scabbard. The silhouette, illuminated from the lamplight within the chamber, appears predatory. A skull mask covers the upper part of his face, but leaves his mouth exposed. Slung across his back, he carries a short bow. From a chain around his neck hangs a pendant having the shape of an upright triangle made from ruby. He leans forward into the room, mouth compressed into a grim line of concentration and prepares to throw a dagger, holding the tip of the long, slender blade between the fingers of his right hand as he raises it beside his head for the cast. The blade of the knife has a dull finish to prevent it being easily seen against the darkness. His unsuspecting target is not visible, but will soon be dead. Upright, a mature man possessing cleverness and skill, with an active mind that seizes upon inspirations and immediately tries to realize them. He is fierce in pursuit of his purpose, but may be frustrated due to his lack of foresight. He seldom thinks matters through, but rushes to attain his intention. His feelings are sensitive, but he tends to domineer over others merely by his force of will. Inverted, a mature man who rushes in all directions at once and expends his force without useful result, distracted by petty details. Crafty and sly, he will use deceit to forward his goals and, if permitted to get away with it, will bully others into agreeing with him. When challenged, his boldness falls into confusion and he is easily overcome by firm determination. Queen of Swords, Harlot. An Egyptian street prostitute stands in the open space in front of an ancient temple of the god Hermes. The temple has long been abandoned, and grasses grow up between the stone paving before the broken doors of the temple. A stone block that has tumbled from the roof may be seen behind her. She lounges beside a square column topped with the bearded head of Hermes, which is much weathered by age. The face of the god has a satyr-like expression. A white dove perches on top of the column. With one hand, she raises the hem of her long green dress to reveal its red inner lining along her bare leg and thigh. With the other hand, she beckons. Her arms and legs are elaborately decorated with henna to inflame desire. Her expression is hard and bold. Her dark, coal-lined eyes seem to pierce like a blade and demand attention. Her rouged lips make some mocking remark. Long black hair hangs tangled and oily down her back and over her shoulder. Rings adorn the toes of her bare feet. From a chain around her neck hangs a pendant in the shape of an inverted triangle of sapphire. In the belt that surrounds her waist is thrust a long dagger, the pommel of which is silver, cast in the shape of a skull. Unnoticed by her, a little mongrel dog sniffs at her feet. Upright, a mature woman who likes to dance and is fond of physical activities that require balance and grace. Her powers of perception are keen and little escapes her notice. She makes an accurate interpretation of the situation and then acts decisively. Confident, precise, correct in her actions, but sometimes preoccupied with trifles. Inverted, a mature woman outwardly attractive and graceful, but sly and unreliable, apt to make cutting and hurtful comments when she feels in a spiteful mood. She uses her personal appeal to manipulate others. Those who give her their love or their loyalty to her often regret it. She never lets her affections get in the way of her advantage. Queen of Swords, the harlot. Alright, we got the Knight of Swords, mercenary. A mercenary soldier with a black beard. Oh, let's look at it. A mercenary soldier with a black beard who wears a spiked steel helmet and battered steel breastplate over a worn leather tunic guides a charging warhorse with only his knees while drawing and preparing to fire a slender recurved warbow at the unseen enemy he attacks. He has minimal armor that is utilitarian rather than for show. The breastplate bears the raised image of a skull at its center. A pendant in the shape of an upright triangle of yellow topaz hangs from a chain around his neck. At his broad belt is a short, straight sword in a worn scabbard. A yellow silk scarf trails out behind him in the wind. His scarred face glows with the exultation of battle as he prepares to release his arrow. The terrified steed rolls its eyes in frenzy as he urges it forward in a wild leap over the sharpened stakes of a picket fortification. The flank of those horse drips the flank of the horse drips with blood from an arrow that is broken off in its wound. The air of the battlefield hangs with heavy smoke. In the background is visible a stone fortification tower, flames pouring up from its windows. Upright, a young man with sharp wit, clever, full of thoughts and ideas, restless in his interests, always seeking some new problem to occupy his attention. His eloquence may earn him the reputation of an expert. Idealistic, abstract in his thinking, sometimes absent minded, he is more interested in the planning than the doing. He meticulously devises ways to reach his objective, but when he has it in his grasp, he loses interest. Inverted, a young man who is fond of arguing for or against a thing merely for the pleasure of hearing himself talk, but who holds no strong principles of his own. He likes to fence with words and delights in the clash of ideas. The truth does not matter to him very much. Indeed, he has a very difficult time recognizing it because he is able to rationalize both sides of any issue. He obstinately I don't know how to fucking say this, is pissing me off. He obstinately refuses to accept what does not suit his own purposes, and those who oppose him soon see the malicious side of his nature. He is apt to insult and browbeat those he cannot convince. Alright, using some fancy book learning words. The Knave of Swords, the thief. He's stealing somebody's fucking, whatever the fuck that is, donkey. A young, skinny street urchin with ragged and matted hair falling over his forehead slyly looks to the side from slits of his charcoal-colored eyes as she cuts open the ties of a leather travel pack slung over the back of a donkey, and with her other hand extracts from it a chain with emerald pendant in the shape of an inverted triangle. Her knife has a curved blade and a bone hilt that is carved on the end a shape of a skull. She wears only a soiled, dun cotton shirt pulled over her head, which hangs in tatters at its long tail around her naked thighs. An open sore runs with pus on her naked calf. Gross. Her face is feral in its fierceness. The donkey watches the thief with one of those docile brown eyes. In front of the donkey is a table with a basket containing ripe pears, but the bridle of the donkey is tied to a post and is not long enough to allow the beast to eat from the basket. Upright, a young woman or child with an aggressive, combative personality. Practical of mind, she has great physical dexterity and control over her body. Others rely on her to settle disputes or to repair the effects of disasters. Her inner strength, determination inspire confidence. She can be remorseless in the pursuit of her purposes. Inverted, a young woman or child with a shallow, careless outlook on life and a tendency to use others to her advantage by means of cunning and trickery. Her pettiness defeats her, even when she succeeds in her designs, since her victory accomplishes nothing of real worth. She is incapable of perceiving a larger purpose, but lives from day to day, exulting in her small triumphs. Beneath the surface, she is troubled and unfulfilled. Discs: Necromancer, Sorceress, Shaman, Auspex. I've never heard of that. Auspex, Auspex. Predominant color, shades of green. Alright. King of Discs, Necromancer. Think about it. Conjuring spirit or some shit. Ooh, spooky. A mature bearded man stands within a magical circle marked in chalk on the floor of a crypt, cradling an open black book in his left arm. His long graying hair falls over his shoulders. He wears a dark robe belted at the waist with a sash. On a chain about his neck hangs a pendant in the shape of an upright triangle of ruby. The only light comes from wax tapers set in the holders on the floor around the circle. His right hand, he extends a golden pentacle toward a triangle marked in chalk on the flagstones a few feet away from the circle, holding the pentacle between all 5 fingers so that it is upright in his hand. The pentacle glows greenly with its own inner fire. On it is the Elder Seal. His lips part as he intones a chant of banishing. The sword lies within a circle, and at his slippered feet, broken into fragments. Within the triangle, which points away from the circle, a demonic creature of spirit struggles to maintain its insubstantial form, its body distorted by the words of the chant and the radiance pouring forth from the pentacle of the necromancer. It can scarcely be distinguished from the plume of smoke, so incoherent has its form become, but its malevolent countenance, bent and elongated within the misty column, glares defiance at the necromancer as the thing struggles to overcome his will. Damn, did that one. Upright, a mature man of a determined and patient disposition, capable of great physical industry. Most of his attention and energy is devoted to material matters of a practical nature. Reliable, skillful in mechanical things, usually serious and seldom given to spontaneous, frivolous outbursts. He is regarded as somewhat dull by his friends, who nonetheless are glad enough to take advantage of his practical skills when they need them. Inverted, a mature man with a grasping, a mature man with a grasping, avaricious nature, who is jealous of the success and wealth of others. He resents anyone who had done better in affairs of business or in the workplace, and expresses his resentment in mean and vulgar ways. Dull-witted, small-minded, meddling, seldom capable of higher principles or spiritual aspirations, he will never achieve great things because he wastes all of his force on minor details. Okay, Queen of Discs, Sorceress. The Sorceress, sorcering it up. Sorceressing it up. A slender woman in a green dress embroidered with gold threads, her long black hair falling over her shoulders, stares down intently into the bowl of a large stone mortar as she grinds the dry ingredients in it with a phallic-shaped stone pestle, using both hands. Arrayed on the wooden table around the pestle are dead Egyptian scarab beetle, a dried asp, a mummified hand, and 3 large eggs, which stand upright on the table with no obvious means of support. The smallest egg, about the size of a hen's egg, is a matte white. The egg of middle size is iridescent silver. The large egg, almost the size of an ostrich egg, is a glossy black, speckled with flecks that resemble stars. Lying flat on the table is a circular cast iron pinnacle bearing within its circumference a version of the Elder Seal. On the table before her, an open spellbook bound in black leather gives her instruction in her work. It is illuminated by a candle burning on an iron candlestick. The tallow, dripping down the sides of the candle, has a curiously unhealthy color, a kind of greenish yellow, suggesting an unnatural source. In the background of her workshop, bottles, jars, boxes, scrolls, a human skull, and other strange relics are to be dimly seen among the shadows. An owl perches on a wooden support in the shape of the letter T, watching the sorceress, who wears around her neck on a chain a pendant in the shape of an inverted triangle made of sapphire. She mutters an incantation as she grinds her powder, a look of intense concentration on her pallid face. Lurid greenish light shines up from the mortar as though the powder has self-ignited, and then it limns her features from beneath. Upright, a mature woman of a shy but charming and generous nature, always willing to extend her heart to others. Impetuous but timid, her sensible yet reserved manner causes her to be taken for granted by those who do not take the trouble to notice her true worth, which is considerable. She is intuitive rather than intellectual, but her intuition seldom fails her. Inverted, a mature woman who devotes too much of her time and energy to unimportant, repetitious labor. She grumbles about her lot in life, but lacks motivation to improve herself. Dull, unimaginative, and with a pedestrian outlook on the world, she cannot conceive herself doing great things, so she does not even try, but toils away slavishly under the instructions of others. All right. Knight of Discs, the shaman. Got a nice shaman dude. Tall and thin, a black African shaman from the land of the Nile above the Egyptian cataracts dances ritually on the beaten earth of the clearing in front of his mud walled hut, shaking in the tuft of black feathers tied to the tip of his thigh bone wand at some unseen presence beyond the campfire that sends its red glow flashing over his sweat covered bare limbs. That's a sentence. His arms and legs are naturally thin, his face long and cheeks hollow. The hair of his head is shaved in a band from back to back, leaving only tufts of hair above each ear. His single garment is a loincloth made from woven grasses, but bands of feathers are bound around his ankles and upper arms. The tiny white teeth of in his small mouth, like the mouth of a child with unnaturally thin lips, and his sunken, glaring eyes cause his face to resemble that of an elongated skull. Around his neck hangs a bone whistle. On a feather thong. A feather thong, damn. And from a longer chain, a pendant in the shape of an upright triangle of yellow topaz. As he screams and gesticulates, he seems to be in the grip of some strange fit of possession. Fastened above the door of his hut behind him is a round wooden plaque bearing the carved image of the Elder Seal. Upright, a young man with prudent and practical attitude, who stays the course until its conclusion. He is best at handling material matters. He has little sense of humor and sometimes wonders what other find so amusing. He makes an excellent manager because of his talent for conserving resources and using them efficiently. Inverted, a young man of limited imagination who resents what he considers the affections and intellectual and artistic types. Okay, he is slow to anger, but once his fury is aroused, it cannot be controlled and often expresses itself through violence. He is concerned mostly about his health, appetites, and bodily needs. Once these are met, he lapses into a dull state of contentment, provided that nothing occurs that causes him to consider his own shortcomings. Okay, Knave of Discs, Auspex. I don't really know what Auspex means, but she's chilling. A young woman stands behind a stone altar in the ruins of a pagan Egyptian temple, sunlight slanting down from great gaps in the fallen roof. She wears a ceremonial headdress with a solar disk in gold upon which is engraved the Elder Seal. Her white linen robe is splashed on the front with fresh blood from where it has spurted up from the sacrifice on the altar, which appears to be a white sheep or goat. Around the diviner's neck hangs a chain bearing a pendant in the shape of an inverted triangle of emerald. She holds the blood-stained sacrificial knife that has been used to slay and cut open the animal in her right hand. The auspex elevates in her left hand the still steaming liver of the sacrifice, having just used the knife to cut it free from the glistening viscera and entrails, which began to drip blood all over the sides of the altar. She keenly regards the entrails in bright sunlight, examining their shape and color. Her youthful face is struck with an expression of wonder, as if most mysterious and precious secret in the world has just been revealed to her. Upright, a young woman or child of generous nature, caring of others, giving of herself, with a deep and constant courage to persevere in the face of difficulties. She preserves her resources with care, using them only where they are needed, and is able to act effectively when the decisive action is required. She is seldom caught without ammunition. Inverted, a young woman or child who is vain of her looks and changeable in her affections. She squanders her resources with careless disregard for the future, merely for the pleasure of satisfying her vanity. Her own self-absorption makes her indifferent to the feelings of others. She assumes that everyone will be interested in her amusements and becomes petulant when they are called away on more important tasks. Okay. I fucked up the end there. Alright, about to get to the fucking number cards. Just 10 more minutes. Okay. Wands. Back to wands. Predominant color, shades of red. the number cards. Alright. Ace of Wands, Matrix of Fire. Picture. A short, powerful wand hangs vertically in the air with a large crystal in the shape of a tetrahedron, three-sided pyramid, on its tip, from which emanate 7 colored rays that are the hues of the rainbow. Just below the base of the wand is the apex of the great Atlantean energy pyramid built from crystal blocks, in the sides of which these colors are reflected. The pyramid is the source of the wand's power. Upright. Purpose, intention, motivation, determination, awakening will, beginning of an action, source, creation. Inverted, false step, error, wrong-headedness, sterility, cut off at the root, stillbirth, squandered opportunity. Alright, these go pretty fucking fast. Two of Wands, exaltation of fire. Some people, 2 pillars. An aristocratic elderly man in rich robes stands lit by the ruddy rays of the morning sun between 2 ancient Atlantean pillars that form a kind of gateway, gazing across the surface of the ocean at a distant isle. The sunlight reflected on the water forms a shining path that links the isle with the pillared gate. On either side, heralds blow a summons on long curved trumpets. Behind the elder, lost in thought, an attractive young noblewoman stands gazing downward into her hand at a richly jeweled pendant, the chain of which hangs around her neck. Okay, upright, boldness, courage, resolution, determined, will, personal authority, ambition, risk-taking. Inverted, pride, dominance, obstinacy, vengeful impulse, abuse of authority, dissatisfaction, impatience. 3 of Wands, establishment of fire. She's standing in the wands and there's some dude coming out of the ocean. Let's see what's up. The Atlantean noblewoman stands barefoot on the beach within a triangle formed by 3 staffs laid upon the sand, confronting a frog-like male deep one who remains in the water, which washes around his ankles. He had just emerged from the sea, and his naked body still glistens and drips. The two seem to have reached some sort of shared understanding. Upright, optimism, good prospects, auspicious progress, all according to plan, established enterprise, discovery. Inverted, suspension, disappointment, frustration, arrogance, excessive pride, self-assertion, unrealistic expectations. We could just get through, maybe we can get through fucking wands. That might be a good spot. 4 of Wands, manifestation of fire. It's the deep one, and this lady at some kind of club. Hit the club. Beneath a scarlet canopy supported by 4 Atlantean pillars sit the noble lady and the deep one side by side in a lover's seat. He is clothed in royal robes of rich purple and gold. Their foreheads touch, and they gaze amorously into each other's eyes, while before them, unnoticed, a young barbarian slave girl dances for their entertainment. Courtiers hover in the background, observing the tryst with nervous expectation. Upright, completion, perfection, settlement, celebration of success, conclusion of work, enjoyment, harmony, satisfaction. Inverted, unsteadiness, haste, insincerity, lack of preparation, anxiety about results, rushing to finish. Alright, 5 of Wands, bitterness of fire. Some people shining some stuff at other people. 2 Atlantean soldiers wearing golden armor and richly colored tunics, who show the familiar first signs of the bloodline of crossbreeds between the deep ones and human beings, vanquish 3 barbarian warriors using short staffs surmounted with crystals that emit a powerful radiance. The barbarians quail and kneel in terror before the light, having cast down their 3 crude clubs and accepted their enslavement, at least for the present. Upright, consenting, strife, competition, struggle for dominance, testing by fire, grace under fire, honor toward foes. Inverted, harsh struggle, treachery, quarreling, cruelty, unfairness, taking advantage of others, manipulating the rules, cheating, legal maneuvers. All right. Six of Wands, rule of fire. They caught them some slaves, looks like. An Atlantean military officer, completely human, dressed in a splendid ceremonial armor and robes, walks with a crystal-tipped wand held upright in his right hand. In his left hand, he holds the end of a tether attached to the neck of a naked barbarian who was prodded to walk after the officer by a soldier with a similar wand, who shows the first signs of the bloodline of the deep ones in his face and body. In the background stand vigilant four soldiers, in whose faces and postures the taint of the deep ones is much more evident, each holding before him a crystal-tipped power wand across his chest. Upright, victory, rewards of labor, pleasure after conflict, enjoying the spoils, triumphal celebration, success attained. Inverted, insolence, vainglorious display, betrayal, a traitor, an empty triumph, false honors, the wrong person elevated to power. All right. Seven of Wands, ordeal of fire. The noble Atlantean officer stands on the defensive with a crystal-headed staff held before him, ready to fend off the attack of six common soldiers whose faces show the coarsening influence of the bloodline of the Deep Ones. The mixed bloods sneer derisively at the pure-blooded human and threaten him with their power wands. Upright, courage and opposition, independent effort, possible victory, personal triumph, confronting a challenge, strong competition. Inverted, confusion, loss of direction, quarrels, obstacles, lack of leadership, anxiety, indecision, embarrassment, putting on a brave face. All right. Eight of Wands, the energy of fire. Get some wands, the pyramid. 8 wands extend in from the sides of the card, 4 on each side. From their crystals emanate destructive rays that cross in conflict. In the background is the ruined remnant of an energy pyramid. Upright, sudden force, swift action, movement, need for haste, important communication, revelation, cause for hope. Inverted, squalls, quarrels, hasty actions that are regretted, possible theft, intemperate words, clash of wills, insolence. 9 of Wands, stability of fire. A singer Atlantean priest. Oh, here's this little deal. It's a priest. He's got the stuff around him. A singer Atlantean priest stands in an 8-sided pentacle formed by 8 wands set upright on the ground with their crystals sending rays outward at an angle from their sides. In his left hand, he holds an open book of golden leaves from which he recites a potent war chant. In his right hand, he raises a 9th wand and emits an enormous ray of power directly upward. Did I say 8 of Wands? It's 9 of Wands if I said 8. Upright, unshakable strength, obstacles overcome, determination, resolve, steady force, recovery from sickness, iron will. Inverted, obstinacy, delay, doubt, lingering illness, continuing opposition, prolongation of difficulty, elusive victory, need for vigilance. All right. God damn. We started this today. We at page 135. Oh, we ain't done yet. Got one more. The 10 of Wands, the burden of fire. Get this. Looks like a deep one, carrying a bunch of the crystal wands. Beneath the setting sun, a naked male deep one walks into the waves of the sea, carrying over his shoulder a bundle of 10 crystal-tipped power wands. His broad back is hunched, and his face is not visible. Behind him, on the sand, lies a dead Atlantean noble, his blood staining the sand and seeping into the waves so that they are reddened at their edges. Upright, overbearing force, oppression, burden of victory, duties, weight of responsibility, obligations, debt of honor. Inverted, many difficulties, false friends, selfishness, ill will, injustice, slander, possible failure of purpose, intrigues, loss of a lawsuit. All right. Then we're gonna get into the cups. That gonna be next time. 'Cause we are just about at an hour. Next thing, it's gonna be cups, predominant color, shades of blue. So, yep. All right. Peace.